Kieran here from Boxing Bants. I'm happy to be joined with Mr. John Cooney. John, you just only nearly turned over. I'm right in saying you're 2-0 at the moment,
Yeah.
and you've got another fight coming up next week in Brussels.
Yes, next Sunday. Yeah, next Sunday.
Yeah. So John, you've a slightly different story to most Irish boxers at the moment. You're originally from England, am I right?
Well, I was raised in England. My parents are Irish, but I was raised in England, so kind of I spent most of my amateur career there and growing up there, sort of thing. So, but the family's Irish and stuff, so hence why I'm back here now.
Where originally
Yeah.
are your parents from?
My dad's from Dundalk, and my mum is from Tipperary.
Right, okay.
So yeah,
I'm
bit of a
actually
mix.
I'm from Drogheda, so your dad's from mine
Drogheda,
actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can hear by the accent that you're up that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
it's distinct.
Yeah. The dog is more distinct than us though. Yeah, more distinct
Yeah,
than
it's,
God. There's
it's yeah, it's a little bit. I'm
rivalry
kind of
between
happy I
us,
don't know.
Whereabouts in England did you grow up?
I grew up in London. I was born and grew up in London, and then around the age of 13, 14, we moved out of London. I moved down south, down the south coast, and that's really where I kind of really picked up the amateur career. I started it in London, but it didn't really take off properly until I moved down south. That's when I really took it more of an interest in it, and then got more stuck into it
How
down in
did you
Bournemouth.
how did it all start? Was it a parent? Was it a friend? How was it?
No, not really. I think it was just I was a very active sort of kid. I used to get in a lot of trouble in school and stuff. And growing up in London, it's one of them places that you find yourself on a spot of bother here and there when you're an active kid and you're out and about and stuff. So I just kind of used to fight a little bit and I used to kind of enjoy it. So I just wanted to, I watched a few Rocky movies with my dad and all that sort of stuff and just kind of always wanted to do it, but they didn't want to let me do it because they thought it made me a bit worse in school because I was quite troubled in school and stuff. So it was a
Okay.
bit of a argument to get into it, but then I finally did get into it and I kind of didn't really fall in love with it until I moved down south and I joined up with my first proper amateur coach, Adrian Malloy, and that's where I really started to fall in love with it and started to actually really want to do it, full time and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So did you
Mm.
compete as an amateur pretty much your whole amateur career was in England, is that right?
Yes, all my amateur career was in England. Yeah. When I moved back to Ireland, I moved back when I was what age? I think I was about 19 or something. And at that time, I wasn't boxing. I give up boxing. Well, not give up. I wanted to have a little break when I turned 18. So I took a break from 18 to 20 and I went back to England to get into it to go pro again. But then I got injured and I moved back to Ireland. And a few years later, here we are. So yeah.
How did it come about that you moved back to Ireland, that you moved to Ireland when you were 19? How did that happen?
The parents just wanted to move back. My dad kind of wanted to retire and be closer to home, with family and all these sort of things. And yeah, my mum wanted to do the same, so they moved back. And I was kind of at a position where I was 19. I didn't really have anything for me to completely stay in England. I was kind of happy. I've always used to come home for the summer holidays and Christmases and all the holidays, Easter and everything else. So for me, I'm close to my family in Ireland as well, so it wasn't too much of a problem for me. So I said I'd give it a try because I was still young, and yeah, I kind of didn't settle the first time as well as I did when I came back the second time. Now I probably couldn't move out of Ireland, so yeah.
Yeah. Why originally do you think that you wanted to turn over as a pro in the UK rather than Ireland?
Uh, to be honest, probably mainly because I knew the system. I knew the way it worked. Like I obviously, like I say, all my amateur career was that I didn't really know anyone in Ireland. I didn't have any connections.
Hmm.
Whereas I knew a few people in London. I knew a few people down south. So for me, it was at the time, I was kind of 19. I wasn't boxing. So I said, if I go back and get into the amateurs there, I'll be able to kind of do the national championships and know a few people from there and go from there. It felt like it was going to be an easier transition, you know. And so that was more the thinking behind it, and just because like I say, I have family and friends there as well, so I had places to stay in London, things like that. So yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't personally really know the depth of the Irish scene at that point as well, you know, in the pros and the amateurs and stuff. So for me, it just felt at the time better to go back there to do it.
Mm. When you came back to Ireland, what was it? It just didn't work out in the UK. You turning over, and you just came back here. Is that right?
No, I actually took a bad shoulder injury.
Oh, okay.
My left shoulder, my left shoulder, my tendons in my shoulders just went. I don't know, they went terrible, and I was getting inflammation and stuff. I couldn't train for about a year. Couldn't even hit the bag. Every time I'd hit the bag, my shoulder would just swell up.
Mm.
That's why I actually had to move home, because I couldn't even work, because what I was doing for work was cutting hair. I'm a barber, and excuse the hair, but you wouldn't think so. But yeah, the shoulder got that swollen that I couldn't even lift my arm, so I couldn't work for like 2-3 weeks. So obviously money started drying up then, and this that and the other, and I just kind of decided I'd go home, like, you know, because I couldn't box at the time, and everything was looking a little bit bleak. So I said I'd head home, you know.
Mm. So when you headed home, so I imagine you were working for a while before you ended up turning over here in Ireland. How did that come about? You turning over?
It's a funny one, like, you know, it was off the back of the pandemic, really. So I got back into the gym. I fixed my shoulders eventually after 2 years, and I got back into the gym the end of 2019 in an amateur club in Galway, Monavea. And what I was planning on doing was boxing for them for a year, maybe doing the national seniors and so on, and kind of get my name out there on the Irish scene, and then going pro. That was the thought process. And then the lockdown come in, the pandemic, so on, and I just kept training. I kept training twice a day because I had nothing else to do. And for me, because I'd been injured for 2 years, I'd lost so much ground on certain fighters and that. So for me, it was like, you know, you've nothing else to do, nowhere to go, no one to see. Just train, just stay dedicated. You know, it will turn around at some point. Things will go back or whatever. And halfway through the summer, then I seen the lads from ORourkes gym were training. They were putting some stuff up on social media. And at this point, I was very fit. I was in great shape. I was dieting and everything. And basically, I just wanted to spar. You know, you can ask any fight. You can train for so long, but at the end of the day, you want to get punched in the head. Like, so yeah. I got in contact with Stephen O'Rourke and give him a message, and basically just said that I was looking for sparring and so on. He, you know, just asked me, you know, have you boxed before? How many fights you had? So on and so forth. Asked me a bit about my experience. And then, yeah, coming back there, I went up, did a bit of sparring. I think he was fairly impressed after the first day, and he asked me to come back, and it just kind of went from there. It was nothing set in stone straight away. It was just something organically that I just kept going back, and we just started growing like that, you know. That's how it really came about.
Did you turn over with O'Rourke himself, or was it with Conor Slater? Which one was it?
Yeah, well, Stephen, Stephen, it was originally I went to Stephen first, and then Conor came on board with Steve. They had two fighters from the gym, kind of organically came that way, you know, and Conor came in, then we had a chat and stuff from, yeah. So that's how that came about.
Would you say the relationship with more so Stephen is kind of managing you, and Connor's kind of more so promoting you, looking for, or is it just
they do the job together, you know? That's kind of, obviously Stephen's the coach, you know, he's the one that's bringing, you know, teaching me, getting me better every day in the gym and stuff. And Connor kind of looks after the more the managerial side, but they work together, you know, picking opponents and all that sort of stuff. I leave that to them. They kind of, they sort that stuff out together, and they come to me, and if Stephen's happy, I'm happy, like, you know. It doesn't really bother me too much, so they work together on them things.
When you turn over, did you have any sort of objective or goal, or like some people turn over and they want to win an Irish title or a Celtic title? Other people are aiming for. Like you look at Tony. Tony was an international level amateur, and obviously his ambition would be to fight for world title, and maybe Tiernan as well. So for you, you'd be eligible even to fight for British titles and Commonwealth and whatnot as well.
None of them really satisfy me, to be honest. Like, I always, when I was a teenager watching boxing, I always believed that I could be a world champion. I still believe that now very strongly. You know, there's it takes certain aspects of a person to get to that level, and I believe that I do have everything that I need to get to that level with the right guidance, the right coaching, the right fights, and so on. I really do believe I will be a world champion. I don't. For me, all the other titles in between, they're nice. They're nice to have, and so on and so forth. But for me, it has to be a world title at the end of it. Otherwise, I won't be fully satisfied with my career. I really do believe I've seen plenty of world champions in the past. Loads of world champions who I've looked at and I said they're nothing special, but they have something special in a way because not everyone can become a world champion. I believe I have something different to most fighters, especially nowadays. I believe I have something different. I believe that's what will get me to the top.
Mm-hmm. Would you be interested in going the traditional route? Obviously, in Ireland, the traditional route would be Celtic, Irish, and then you'd go to European and world. Whereas you have an option of going through Irish and Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And like you look at the level, especially in your weight class in the UK, is very, very high at that domestic level. Mm-hmm. And it's a great learning curve and kind of proof in the pudding.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Would that be your interest, kind of going through those years?
Yeah, I believe, for me, it's different. Everyone has different careers. If you've won an Olympic gold medal, you can jump certain steps, because of promoters and so on and so forth. But I believe I didn't have the most amateur fights. I didn't have 100, 200 amateur fights. So I am still learning on the job also. But for the amount of fights I've had and the experience I've had, I'm very advanced as well. So you have to have them certain tests, whether it be a gut test, whether it be boxing someone who's way more experienced than you, who's cuter than you, who's maybe bigger and stronger than you, or just a slicker boxing. You have to have certain tests. So for me, I do want to pick up all the titles as I go along. And me, to be honest, I'd like to fight for an Irish title and I'd like to fight for British titles if I can. It depends really. Like I was saying, for me, I'd happily fight for an Irish title or British title, whatever. To me, like I say, the end goal is the world titles. That is what I want at the end of my career. So the in between, I won't feel upset or annoyed that I didn't pick up an Irish title or a British title. If there's something that I have to bypass or that's not the route that I need to take, then I won't. But at the same time, I do believe I want to fight all the domestic people. I want to fight for, I want to fight the Irish lads. I want to fight the lads in Britain as well. I want tough tests throughout, because I'm a big boxing fan. I like watching good fights, 50-50 fights, and that's why I want to be involved. I don't want to be involved in pushover fights or fights that aren't going to test me or bring me up to a certain level to win world titles.
Mm. And I think more so, like you look at the past, like lads in your position who maybe haven't had the amateur career, let's just say by Tony. Sometimes it's very useful for someone like you to go through those tests to kind of show you're worth that level. Like for a perfect example, be Anthony Crawler. Anthony Crawler went through every belt.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
even lost at British level.
I was just about to say the same thing. He even lost the British level and came back and won a world title. So yeah.
And then you've people who won both. So you've Jamie Moore who won British and Irish. You've Macklin who won British and Irish. Tyson Fury, British and Irish. So so yeah, there's plenty of people who have done both. But especially in your division, it's so many people in it at the moment. But
so yeah,
how's your experience been? Because a few of you that have turned over haven't been the same as others. Where you've experienced your pro debuts behind closed doors and abroad because of the current situation. So, how has that been for an experience like you?
Yeah, it is a little bit different. It does feel a little bit like sparring sometimes, but at the end of the day, boxing is a career. And you have to understand when you get in that ring, the person you're fighting, he's going to want to hit you and hurt you. And I when I get in the ring, I'm quite vicious. I do want to hurt people. I have that spitefulness in me, whether there's people there or not. It doesn't matter to me. Someone's punching me in the face. That I'm going to be fully up for the fight. So it hasn't bothered me too much, to be honest, because I had 2 or 3 years out of the ring. It nearly probably even suited me to box behind closed doors, so I could relax that bit more and do what I was supposed to do, rather than caught up in the moment with loads of friends and family shouting and kind of, getting more nervous that way, sort of thing. So I am also looking forward to the fans coming back. But the experience of going abroad and stuff, it's actually been really good out in Spain. It's, the weather's obviously a bit better and stuff, and the setup's been pretty good. I don't know if you got caught a couple of the fights. The setup was good. The even what they were broadcasting the fights on was good. The cameras and stuff. So it was a very good and professional setup. And I'm sure I will be back again there in the summer or later in the year this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. When everything opens up, would you be is there any? Would you like to fight in Ireland, in the UK first when you make your first kind of your first appearance in front of a crowd? Would you be looking here in Ireland on an Irish show, or would you look to fight in the UK?
Well, I could do either. To be honest with you, I could sell tickets in both places. I obviously grew up in London, know a lot of people there, and down south and so on. And obviously I have a big Irish family and obviously Irish friends and so on. So I could do either or. To be honest, it would probably look more like England will be back first. You would imagine, that they would have fans and shows back first before Ireland, I would imagine. Maybe that's not the case. I don't know. But it's really, for me, I'd be happy to do either, because I can, like I say, I could sell tickets either place. And if I fought in Ireland, I'd have people from England come over to Ireland, and vice versa. If I fought in England, I'd have my family and so on, friends come over from Ireland to England. So for me, I'm not really too pushed on that. I just want to be somewhere where there's going to be fans there and there's going to be a bit more atmosphere and stuff. So yeah.
Do you have your license with the British Boxing Board of Control, or do you have to be UI, or who do you have it with?
If I'm not correct, it was with the Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously, because my pro debut was out there, so I think it was just at the time. I forget when it was. I fought in November, and it was kind of like October time, so time was a bit pushed, and I think the British board was still being a bit slow. Things were a bit slower and stuff. And because I was fighting in Spain, I think it just worked out a bit easier there. But going forward, that might change. So that's all stuff for obviously you have it for a year, whatever. So I'm not looking at that just yet.
So just before we wrap it up, who is there anyone on your radar at the moment, maybe domestically, that you'd be interested in fighting in the near future?
There's a few. Again, I wouldn't know all the Irish lads, but I'd be looking at sort of fighters towards the end of this year and early next year. I would like an Irish title fight or a BUI Celtic fight. And there's a few lads around super feather. Is it Stephen McAfee? Is it? Am I right in saying that now?
Oh, Stephen McAfee.
McAfee, yeah. I've heard of him. There's a couple of lads. To be honest, I want to fight anyone. Anyone who's around that level, I'll fight. I don't take no. It doesn't matter to me. I'll fight them all, sort of thing. So. I'd happily take any of the fights towards the end of this year, next year.
Well, look, John, really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed the interview. And hopefully next time my interview will be in a one-to-one capacity after a fight.
Let's hope so. It'd be nice to see. Obviously, I haven't got that side of things yet either. I'm looking forward to bigger shows coming back and a bit more life around it all. At the moment it's very segregated. We're seeing no one doing nothing. Obviously COVID around, you're trying not to catch that for your fights and stuff. So you're just very segregated. So I'm looking forward to things getting back to some sort of normality or pushing in that direction. And
yeah. Well, look, John, thanks very much, and
appreciate it.
Today, right?